Hello once again and welcome to the video. In this one I'll be continuing my series looking at every race in the 2025 Formula One World Championship. I feel like I've said that about 50 times this year. Feels like a very long year. I think last year was 24 races as well, wasn't it? I think it was, wasn't it? Anyway, yes, looking at every race in the 2025 Formula One World Championship, just from a fan's perspective, a fan of many decades. And what I do is I list the finishing order here, including disqualifications at the bottom, and then the top 10 in the Drivers' Championship, and the rundown of the Constructors' Championship. So let's dive in what was an extremely eventful 4 hours after the Grand Prix finished. So let's go with, so it's round number 22 in Las Vegas. Now, I've been to Las Vegas a number of times, 4 times in fact, and I'm not even a gambler. I couldn't play cards to save my life. I couldn't play poker or anything like that. I wouldn't know what I was doing. Somehow, for whatever reason, I've still been to Vegas 4 times. And I have been this time of year. So seeing all those people in hats and coats, woolly hats and coats, I perfectly sympathise. Because when I went this time, in 2009, I went this time of year. Boy, was it cold. God, dear. And I took sort of summer clothes, and I wish I hadn't, basically. I hope that's in focus. Is that in focus? I think so. God, dear, yeah. Extremely cold. Nice and hot when I went in the summer, but it's in the desert, of course, isn't it? So you're dealing with temperature extremes. Boy, it was cold. Right, so let's do this then. So first, Verstappen. Who's next? Russell. Third was, amazingly, Antonelli. Let's check the focus. It's important to check the focus. Yeah, so the focus is all good. Okay, 4th place was, who was 4th? Leclerc, that's right. Sainz, 5th. Hadjar. And then we have Hulkenberg. And then I think it was Hamilton, wasn't it? Bearman, yeah, that's right. Hamilton. Ocon. And then I think it was, wasn't it Alonso? Yeah, Alonso. Tsunoda. I think that's Lawson. Colapinto, wasn't it? Gasly. Lawson. Colapinto. Then we had Albon, Bortoleto and Stroll. Yes, Albon, Bortoleto and Stroll. And then Oh dearie me. Anyway, let's go to the Drivers' Championship. Somehow, despite Zandvoort and Las Vegas, Norris is leading the championship. History. Uh, 366. Russell 294. He's going really well. Fifth is Leclerc on 226. Oh. And then, as ever, Hamilton in with, what was he got, 152. Dearie me, Hamilton, 4 years of grief. It never ends. Is that in focus? I like to think that it is. Yes, so 7th in the championship is Antonelli. With 137 now. That's very good. About to pass Hamilton. Albon on 73. Hadjar 51 and Hulkenberg 49. Okay, constructors. McLaren 756 ahead of Mercedes on 431. Third, Red Bull 391. Ferrari 378. Check that. Focus is good. Williams 121. Racing Bull. Not, I refuse to put the S on the end when I say it. Racing Bull. I've written the S, but I'm not going to say the S because it's silly. Haas 73. Aston. Martin 72. Sauber 68. Alpine still on 22. Yeah, I say about Red Bull, pronouncing it with the S, there being an S on the end is very silly. It's not as silly as something that's bothered me for decades, and that is when sports commentators, I might have mentioned it before, it's when sports commentators, and they've done it with Max Verstappen this year, they talk about, will so-and-so be able to defend their title? Will Max be able to defend his title? Well, he is defending his title. What you mean is, will Max be able to successfully defend his title? It's amazing how many sports commentators miss off the successfully bit. They don't seem to understand that just by turning up, taking your hat and coat off, and taking part means that you are defending your title. Just by turning up, you're defending your title. It's a question of whether or not you can successfully defend your title. Commentators will also make the mistake, if you've got two drivers in 7th and 8th place, they will sometimes say they're battling for 7th and 8th, or they're fighting over 7th and 8th. They're not fighting over 8th, they're fighting over 7th. The person in 8th place, it doesn't want to be 8th, they want to be 7th, so they're just fighting over 7th. They're not fighting over 7th and 8th. Anyway, that doesn't bother me as much as the defending the title thing, though. Successfully defend title. Will Max successfully defend his title? Not will he defend his title, because he's there. I've seen him. He's won 6 races this year. He is defending his title. But will he successfully defend it? Okay, let's write fastest lap then. Max Verstappen. Boom. Wins. 14 for McLaren, 2 for Mercedes, and 6 for Red Bull. So we've got Norris with 7, Piastri with 7, just like Senna and Prost in 1988 in the McLarens. In fact, that would be interesting if it ends like that. Wouldn't that be interesting? If McLaren finished 1st and 2nd in the championship. When was the last time that 2 McLarens finished 1st and 2nd? It might have been 88. No, 89 it would have been, wouldn't it? But anyway, 88. 7 wins apiece for Senna and Prost. God, that feels like a long time ago. 6 for Verstappen, 2 for Russell. Okay, so what did we think of that news after the race had even finished, after 4 hours after the race had finished? I have to congratulate Ted Kravitz. I don't know if you watch the Sky coverage, but he was sniffing around all over the suspicion. His heckles rose during his notebook not immediately after the race, about an hour after the finish of the race. He does his notebook, walking around the paddock, and he could tell that something was not quite right. And at first he thought it was to do with the fuel level, and then towards the end of his little half-hour program, he did start to talk about the possibility of skid block. But he was saying, at no point did he mention that Oscar's car was under investigation. He thought it was just Lando. Yeah, kudos to Ted Kravitz for being correctly suspicious, basically. What a disaster, though, for Norris. Dearie me, it's difficult to talk about the race after that. In fact, I didn't watch any of the... I didn't watch the race live. I watched it about 18 hours later. So when the race finished, I immediately looked at the news feed before I watched any of the chit-chat after the race. And of course, because I was watching it 18 hours later, I of course then saw that the McLarens were disqualified. So I then had to watch an hour and a half of chit-chat after the race, which I always like to do to pick up on bits of information, when much of the information in the chit-chat was of course inaccurate, because the 2 McLarens had been disqualified, which they didn't know at that point. Didn't know till about 4 hours after the race finished. Can't complain about it though. I mean, the skid blocks were below 9mm. McLaren was saying, oh, it's due to unforeseen porpoising on the car. Well, yes, okay, it was, but the car is still illegal. So just like with Ferrari in China, I think that was skid block, wasn't it? Or was Hamilton's skid block and Leclerc something else? I can't remember. But just as with that, you have to go with it. Yeah, just, disqualified. Boom, just like that. Dearie me. Got to feel sorry for that entire team. You've got to feel sorry for the drivers. Although, of course, it has helped Piastri. It's not helped him as regards now Verstappen is alongside him in the championship. But it helped him in the fact that he's no longer 30 points behind Norris. He's 24 points behind Norris again. So if I was a Piastri fan, I would be pleased, especially with the next 2 tracks being McLaren tracks, not Red Bull tracks. or not max ball tracks. So, yeah, if I was a Piastri, obviously Piastri's not going to say he's happy he's been disqualified, but I would be extremely surprised if he hasn't got a smile under the surface. I'm sure that Piastri would not be happy with winning a championship because of something happening to his championship rival. Norris has now lost 36 points through 2 unforeseen retirements, with Piastri only losing 12, so that's a 24-point difference then there. So really the gap should be 48 points between Norris and Piastri, not 24. But I'm sure Oscar wouldn't be happy about that, wouldn't want that, but still the overriding desire is to be champion. Of course, you would rather win it on the track, but if you can win it with a couple of retirements for your opponent, then fair enough. I mean, if Verstappen wins it, it'll only be because Norris has had 2 retirements and because Oscar went off the boil. I have to say, we say Oscar went off the boil. He went off the boil with his mentality, in my view. I think he lost his composure since the summer break, pretty much. Some people would say because of Monza, but they're overlooking the fact that Monza wasn't a simple mistake in the pit. Okay, it wasn't Norris coming in on his pit stop and then it being a long pit stop, and then because of that they decided to reverse the positions. No, it wasn't that at all. If that happens in a race, you just lose the position. It's just bad luck. It wasn't that at all, of course. In Monza, Norris said, yes, I will hand over the first preferential pit stop, which ended up being the quickest pit stop so far all year by any team. Still a record. Yes, I will give that pit stop to Oscar so long as I'm not undercut. In other words, so long as something doesn't happen where Oscar ends up in front. And the team said, absolutely, definitely it won't. And then, of course, it did when the front left tyre guy fell asleep or got distracted by a wasp or something. He had to be tapped on the shoulder in order to actually do his job, which is a bit odd how you could be distracted in that moment by something else. Anyway, easily distracted. And of course, that's why the positions were handed back. Totally fair. And second to that, of course, also, you could say it was payback for Hungary last year. But that's not why McLaren did it. They did it because they promised Lando, yes, if you hand your preferential pit stop to Oscar, don't worry, Oscar will not end up undercutting you. But then, of course, the mistake happened. So anyway, a lot of people think that it's since Monza is because Oscar's still playing, has that playing on his mind. I think Mark Webber needs to get hold of him, shake him by the shoulders and say, you were not hard done by there. You were not hard done by, okay? That was totally fair, what happened in Monza. So stop letting it play on your mind, if indeed it is. I forgot what my initial point was now. But he, that's right, yeah. So Verstappen, if he wins the championship, it's only going to be because of Norris's mistakes in qualifying at the first part of the season and him not being able to get to grips with the car, and then psychological issues for Oscar later in the year. Lando has always been quicker than Oscar the whole time they've been together. I'm surprised. I thought Oscar would be quicker when he joined the team, but Norris has always been faster. There's just been reasons why he's had issues, and like at the start of the year when he couldn't get to grips with the car and it started to play on him psychologically. Anyway, that's the only reason why Verstappen will win the championship. Yes, he's driven very well, Verstappen, this year. He's driven very well, but he's had a good car for a lot of the year as well. Shouldn't be forgotten. Mainly towards the beginning, the sort of the first third and the last third, basically, of the season. But anyway, the actual race itself. So Norris, super aggressive at the start. What was all that about? Super aggressive. He reminds me of Nico Rosberg in 2014. Well, his whole time with Hamilton as a teammate, he was it wasn't natural for Nico to be aggressive. He struggled to be as punchy and aggressive as Lewis, and he struggled to be precise with his aggressiveness because it wasn't natural to him. So I remember specifically Belgium 2014, where he just punted Lewis off the track and into retirement, and Nico went on to finish third. And I think even Toto Wolff had a go at Nico for that. And that's just Nico desperately trying to be as precisely aggressive as Lewis was able to be. And that's what Lando's done here. It's not natural for Lando to be aggressive. He's fast. It's all about speed with Lando. If he's on his own on the track, boom, it's. But when he starts to have to tussle with other drivers, that's when it gets difficult for him. That's something that Oscar does better. The nitty-gritty dogfighting, Oscar is better at than Lando. But for out-and-out speed, Lando is much quicker than Oscar. So yeah, that aggressive move, that was Lando trying something, and of course it didn't work because, well, initially it worked. He blocked Max, but then he's right tucked up on the inside. He can't get the angle into the first corner because he's too close to the barrier. So he was going too fast as well, yes, and too distracted by Max behind him. But I think the main reason why he missed it was because he was just too close to the barriers. He didn't have the angle for the first corner. So that made him look silly in the end, unfortunately. But he owned up to that after the race, which is good. Lawson banged into Piastri, didn't he? I'm amazed that Oscar got away with that without any damage. Lawson didn't, but yeah, that was Lawson sort of running out of space a little bit. Bortoleto did what I've done many, many times on the F1 game on the PC, and that is dive bomb down the middle into the first corner, thinking, wow, I'm overtaking all these guys, and it's like, uh-oh, they're all turning into the first corner. I didn't see that coming. I didn't realise they were going to turn into the corner. And all you do then is you just plough into all the cars, which is what Bortoleto did, taking himself out, and Stroll, I believe. Did he hit Gasly as well? Possibly. But yeah, that was all a little bit of a mess. Hamilton's grey putty coloured helmet. That's unfortunate. If you see the helmet close up, yes, it looks like a big diamond ring that you might find on an expensive lady's ring or finger or something. Not the sort of thing that I'd expect a 40-year-old bloke to have on top of his head. But he is a bit bling, isn't he, Lewis? It's the thing that's always not looked quite right with me. But anyway, and his clothes, of course, his fashion sense is way out there, Lewis. Sometimes you can't see Lewis because of all the clothes he's wearing, but that's his own personal choice. Why not go for it? And I do applaud people who wear what they like and don't care. Hopefully he is wearing what he likes and not just following the trend set by one of his hip-hop friends in America or something. I don't know. Hopefully it's his own style. When he wears those giant shoes and he wears a tent for a pair of trousers and things like that, Anyway, his helmet. Oh, come on, Hamilton, stick to yellow. If you do want a bit of bling for Las Vegas, just put a little bit of bling on. Leclerc had a little bit of bling on his red helmet, but it was still a red helmet. And just a little bit, just a few diamond encrusted areas, Hamilton, it was just one big diamond on his finger, on his head. And from a distance, unfortunately for him, it looked grey. It looked light grey, like someone had smeared a load of, or made his helmet out of putty. That's what it looked like to me. So really, if you're going to have a helmet like that, you should test it to see what it looks like on TV. No, I just thought that was a bit ridiculous, his helmet. But anyway, Antonelli, driver of the day. Definitely driver of the day for me. Not Max. Why would you make Max driver of the day? He's won 69 Grand Prix now. Grand Prix. So let's put 69 wins there, yeah? Only behind Schumacher and Hamilton. 69 wins. He was in a good car that was expected to win, or at least stand a very good chance of winning. The McLarens were not expected to do well. The Red Bull and the Mercedes were expected to do very well. And they did. I don't think we should be applauding Max Verstappen for winning that race. He won it by 20 seconds, but only because of Lando's fuel management at the end. I think he would have been he was 7 or 8 seconds behind with about 2 laps to go, Lando, before his fuel saving kicked in. But you can't... Making Max driver of the day is a bit of an insult. It's not his first Grand Prix win. It would be a bit like applauding me for successfully making cheese on toast. If I got an award for successfully making some cheese on toast, I would be like, well, I've done far more than this, and I've done cheese on toast so many times. You want to see my roast potatoes. So it's a bit like that with Max. I think it's almost a bit of an insult to make him driver of the day. Driver of the day was Antonelli, Andrea, Kimi Antonelli. See, everyone forgets his first name is Andrea, don't they? I want to call him Andrea because it's his first name, but I know he likes to be called Kimi. But yeah, 17th on the grid. Came in for an early pit stop to get rid of his mediums and then just put on some hards. I think everyone thought that he was then going to do one more stop for another set of hards, but instead he made those hards last 48 laps. Which is very impressive, basically. So I would make Antonelli driver of the day because he held off... who did he hold off? He held off Piastri. I'm not sure that Piastri was necessarily, towards the end, I don't think Piastri was necessarily attacking him too hard. Piastri would have liked to have got past beyond Leclerc, because Leclerc was threatening Piastri, but Piastri also would have known that Antonelli had a 5-second penalty. So, for that reason, he would have, not been challenging too hard. Let me just have a little drink of water. You might be able to hear my voice is... there's nothing wrong with my voice, it's just right now it seems to be playing up a little bit. Okay. Okay, that's better. So yeah, Norris's fuel management at the end. He lost about 12 seconds in the last 2 laps. I was on the edge of my seat. In fact, I will admit, at one point I actually dropped off the edge of the seat. Well, I didn't drop, I took myself off the edge of the seat, and I was kneeling on the floor in front of the TV, feeling super stressed, because I thought, no, you cannot have another retirement after Zandvoort, and on the last lap of the race. That would be so unfair. Ah dear, let's not hand the championship to Max like Michael Massey handed the championship to Max in 2021. Come on. But he made it across the line, only to get... And then I looked and I was full of relief. Whew, and then I looked online, boom, disqualified. Disaster. Now, everyone's saying, doesn't matter, 24-point lead, 2 races left, he just wins it at the next race. But that reminds me of both Nigel Mansell in 1986 and Lewis Hamilton in 2007. In 86, Mansell was about to win the championship. I think he just had to finish 3rd in Mexico in the penultimate race to win his maiden championship. And he had a bad start. And he managed to recover to 5th place. That race ended up being Gerhard Berger's first Grand Prix win in a Benetton. The Benetton, which is currently the Alpine. But yeah, everyone said, oh, okay, he hasn't won the championship in Mexico. Don't worry. He's still leading the championship, so just win it in the last race in Australia. And then his tyre blew up 16 laps from the end when he was in the position to win it. And then, of course, Hamilton in 2007 in the penultimate race He's cruising to victory. He just needs to finish sort of in the top 3 and he's world champion. Comes into the pits. The team call him in too late. His tyres falling to pieces and he just slides off into a gravel trap in China, which isn't there anymore. They removed it for that very reason. But everyone said, oh, okay, doesn't matter. He's still got a healthy lead. He can just win the championship in the final round in Brazil. And then he had another problem at the start. Another problem there at the start when his car switched off or something. And he fell right down the field and he only recovered to 7th. All he had to do was finish 5th to win the championship. And he finished 7th. And this is the same thing now. It feels the same. Okay, Lando. Okay, you've lost these points, but don't worry. Just win it in Qatar or Abu Dhabi. You know, that's all right. But now I'm thinking Max is going to be super, super motivated. Of course he is. He's going to be on fire now. He's going to be all over Lando. I mean, Lando wins in Qatar. He's won the championship. And it'll be amazing. I think it'll be amazing if Norris wins the championship, despite the retirement in Zandvoort and the disqualification here. It would be terrible if he lost the championship because of a broken oil pipe in Zandvoort and a worn, ever so slightly worn plank underneath his McLaren in Las Vegas. It would be terrible to lose a championship like that because that bad luck has not happened to Oscar. The problems he's had have been self-inflicted. You could argue that the rain in the sprint in Brazil was because of Norris disturbing the water, but it's a bit unclear whether it was Norris disturbing the water ahead of him that sent him off. That's a bit unclear because Oscar did go on the curb just as much as Lando did, so he didn't slide off on the tarmac. He hit the water as well, just like Norris did. Anyway, that was only 8 points, but he didn't lose 8 points. He might have been 2nd or 3rd in that race. I don't think he would have won it. But yeah, that's the jury's out on whether or not that was, unlucky for Oscar or whether or not it was just Oscar making a mistake. But certainly Oscar has not had the terrible bad luck that Lando has had. I remember Miami when Max made a mistake, and that mistake meant that he steered into, or oversteered, or understeered, or whatever, into Lando and pushed him off the track. Lando came back behind, 3 or 4 drivers, as did Verstappen, and Oscar just came through and was suddenly in the lead. And then, of course, the sprint race in Austin, where Lando clearly would have finished ahead of Oscar in that race, had Oscar not wiped him out. And then you got Zandvoort, of course, 18 points lost there. A possible win. He was only a couple of seconds behind Oscar, but I think Oscar would have held him off. I don't think Lando would have won that race, but it was 18 points lost, and then 18 points lost here as well. So it'd be an incredible achievement if Lando manages to win it. Driving through all the boos and hisses from unknowledgeable fans. I like to think a small proportion of fans in the crowd that don't really know the sport very well. Someone on social media tells them to boo Norris, so they boo Norris. Anyway, so there you go. Driver of the day, definitely Antonelli. Now, there wasn't a lot of exciting stuff happening in the race. That much at all, really. Verstappen was in control. Norris got back past Russell for 2nd place. Russell apparently at one point he mentioned a bit of a Max. When Max exaggerates massively, with an issue with his car, like he says, I can't steer the car or something. I can only go in straight lines. I can't go round corners. Now, if I was Giampiero, his race engineer, I'd say to him, well, hang on, how did you get around the last corner then? Didn't you crash at the next corner after you said that? So Max is the master of the overstatement and the exaggeration. And Russell did a bit of that as well, saying, I've got problems with my steering. Okay, he may well have had problems with his steering. He's not really exaggerating. But clearly those problems were not devastatingly bad. Otherwise, he would have gone off at the very next corner. But anyway, those problems, I think, cleared themselves. And Russell was able to come through very strong for hold on to second, but Antonelli was only just behind him. Sainz, very good performance. Qualified well in third. All these people, of course, they've all risen 2 places, which has helped them out. Hadjar, Hulkenberg, Hamilton from last place to 8th. Well, still disappointing. I mean, he made a right mess in quali, didn't he? I assume it was Lewis's fault. We don't know, but it seems like the red light came on in between the line, that the timing beacon line, and the start-finish line. And maybe, we don't know, but it's not being confirmed, but maybe Lewis thought the timing line was also the start-finish line. So when the light came on just before the start-finish line, he thought he'd missed it. In fact, he'd already gone over the start-finish line, and he said to his team, am I clear? In other words, he thought that was it. That's his last run. He's missed it. Am I clear? In other words, am I in the top 15? The team said, no, keep pushing, which must have confused Lewis because he thought the red light had come on before he crossed the line. But he couldn't keep pushing because he'd already slowed because he thought that was the end. So he'd already backed off before he'd even asked the question. So unless something else comes to light, that's clearly a mistake by Lewis. But, just disaster. I wonder what John Elkann will say about that. Or shout about that. Or swear about that, or whatever. I don't think so. I think he's learnt his lesson from what he said last week. Gasly, he was in the wars as well. Tsunoda started from the pit lane. I forget why. 13th. Alonso 11th. Bearman did well, I guess, for 10th, although that's quite disappointing. Not only being 10th for Bearman, but actually being behind Ocon. He's normally in front of Ocon. Albon he went to overtake Hamilton, didn't he? And crashed into him, basically. He got a 5-second penalty for that, and then he retired later anyway. Bortoleto, mentioned him. Stroll was taken out by Bortoleto. So now in the championship, look at that, 24 points. 24 points. It's actually a bit of a good result for Piastri, as I said earlier. The disqualification has done Piastri a big favour there. He's closer to the leader. Yes, I know Verstappen's right there, but it's all about how far away you are from the leader of the championship. And he would have been 30 points. Now he's 24 again. So, great for Piastri, that disqualification. Fantastic for Verstappen. Fantastic luck, basically, for Verstappen. Amazing bad luck for Norris, because it's not the fault of the drivers at all. But there you go. At least he has only got 1 week to wait to see what happens next. In the Constructors' Championship, Mercedes seem to have second place nailed on now, 40 points clear of Red Bull, the Max Bull. So that surely is seeing them clear. Williams will clearly finish 5th. Ferrari, they could still get past Red Bull, but a fired up Max, it's going to be difficult for the two Ferraris to topple that. These teams were fighting quite close. Look, Racing Bull, Haas, Aston Martin, Sauber, very close. So I was devastated by that result, but I won't be, of course, if Norris wins in Qatar on a McLaren track. Getting pole position was amazing, what he did to get pole position. here in Las Vegas, and it's all for nothing. It's all wasted. The disqualifications, all the work by the team, not just the two drivers, but the whole team, has all just been thrown in the bin because of a skid plank. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Anyway, I have to move on, as Norris said. Move on, focus on Qatar, you know. But there does seem to be a certain inevitability about how it all seems to be falling into Verstappen's lap. As soon as the McLarens get a distance in front, something happens to pull Max back into it again. You know, that string of victories he had after Zandvoort, basically. And then it looked like Norris had got to grips with that. And then a bit of bad luck for Norris and Piastri. Well, no, actually it's good luck for Piastri. Bad luck for Norris, and suddenly Verstappen's back in it again. Unbelievable. It's like it's, you know, just like 2021, it all fell in his lap at the end. It didn't earlier in the year. Verstappen had a lot of bad things happening to him earlier in the year, like Azerbaijan, that his tyre exploding 3 laps from the end. Hungary, where he was wiped out by Lewis's teammate. And of course Silverstone, where I believe they were both jointly at fault. You know, Lewis went for a gap that was not really there, but also Max should have known he was going for the gap, should have seen him there and not moved in on him, but did. Anyway, it's I thought they were equally to blame, but Max was very unlucky because Max retired. Lewis didn't retire and ended up winning the race. But when it actually came to the end of the season, all the luck suddenly fell on Max, and it seems to be, it looks like it's happening here as well. So we'll see. I still think Norris will win, but there's a sort of scary inevitability about it. I mean, Verstappen was 104 points behind Oscar after Zandvoort. 104. They're now level on points. That's amazing. Norris has finished ahead of Piastri in the last 7 Grand Prix. In 8 races, if you include Brazil sprint race. No doubt he would have finished ahead in Austin sprint race. Piastri hasn't won since Zandvoort. Yeah, so there you go. There it is. There you have it. So thank you very much for watching and listening. If you'd like to subscribe, please do so, or like the video, or comment. I suspect there's going to be some very excited Max fans out there. I'd be jumping up and down and clapping like a seal if I was a Max fan right now. So, yeah, feel free to jump up and down and clap like a seal. But anyway, hopefully, you know, there won't be as much anti-Lando posts. In fact, I haven't seen them after Mexico and Brazil. There's a bit less anti-Lando stuff. And I welcome all comments, but it's just nice to see that maybe those people are seeing Lando's performance and thinking, oh, yeah, maybe he's not rubbish after all. Anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Yeah, if you'd like to subscribe, please do so, or comment, or like the video, or leave a tip on the thanks button below the video. And I will see you on the very next video, hopefully, whatever it may be about. Thank you, and goodbye for now.